Are you wondering how you can get the best positioning in Valorant and destroy your enemies completely without them even knowing you're there? Whether you simply want to time your flanks better and have better positioning in them, or simply just hold an angle better and gain the advantage over your opponent in a one-on-one gunfight, this is going to help you out. And if it does, be sure to drop a like on the video. And I do stream on Twitch every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, well, when my Wi-Fi is working, and that is a link down below in the description, so feel free to check it out if you want to come over. First off, we are going to be talking about the two different types of positioning. I'll be breaking down the tips for them and getting into how you can use it to your advantage. Now, the first type of positioning is how you should actually hold an angle and how tight or how close you should be holding this angle. And the next type of positioning is your positioning during the round, which could be going on a flank, simply where you're positioned on site, or how to gain a better advantage over the opponent. First off, I am going to be breaking down the second type of positioning because it is the most beneficial to you. Now, this one is a pretty big topic because it can literally range from making a flank during a round timed perfectly to where your team is positioned on a site. So I'll try and cover the macro and also the micro with this one too. Generally, the rule of thumb for where your team is going to be positioned on bomb sites and on the actual map itself, you want to have potentially 2 on A, 2 on B, and then 1 on mid. This will vary with different maps, however these are the general principles, but you can always break them. A lot of positioning will come down to game sense and simply knowing something that is completely out of control and I cannot predict. The best way to put it is there are rules, but you should know when to break them and when to use them. For example, if they're going to be pushing A, I believe that one of your team from B should rotate over, the person in mid stays mid and cuts off the rotate, and then you still have one person on B in case everything goes down the drain and they end up pushing B. It's a pretty basic concept of backing up the team on A, having a backup option on B, and cutting off the rotate so they can't actually get there, which is the person on mid. That is generally going to be good positioning. Now here's the thing, when someone gets picked off on A, what do? Well, you send one of the team members over, ideally the guy from B. Because if it's a 5v5 and they're continuing to push A, you're completely fine right now. Nobody needs to rotate over for that extra man because there's no disadvantage or advantage. You might notice this is only for defense, and we will be getting onto the attack stage very, very soon. For attack, it's a little bit different. On defense, you generally don't want to be peeking too many things. Often, the reason why people push onto site is due to bad positioning. And really, nobody understands this. On defense, you simply don't have to peek. Don't get me wrong, there are tactical aggressive plays you can do, like peeking off the bat with a Reyna and dismissing away, something like that, but generally, you don't have to peek. If you're in Immortal, Radiant, this isn't really going to apply to you because, let's face it here, the plays are completely different. However, generally for everything below that, it doesn't really get too advanced and you just don't have to peek an angle. If you want to have good positioning on defense, follow the basic principles I laid out before and simply don't peek angles until they push onto site. Does this mean you hide in a corner for the entire game? Nope, you simply stand behind something and wait for them to move onto site, and then you peek out. And the beauty of it is nobody gets picked off. And when they all do push onto site, 3 of you that are on that site right now, you peek all at the same time, and you'll start taking them out. They're not actually a threat until they come onto the site and start planting. Remember that. The next big mistake is often people will peek in 1v1s. For example, if there's 5 people pushing onto the site, 1 person on your team peeks, and the rest don't. That's pointless. All peek at the same time. It's going to be very hard for them to take all 3 of you out. And the next part of good positioning on defense comes down to actually having a position where you can kill someone and take someone out when you do peek and keep yourself safe at the same time. That is crucial too. Getting a flank correct all really comes down to timing. You want to get them just before they push onto site, but if they push onto site and you're flanking, it's kind of pointless. And at the same time, if you push and it's too early and they're covering the flank, again, pointless. I can't give you any tips for that one, but just make sure you're quiet and you time it correctly. You don't always have to hold the flank, you can always hold the rotate like the guy from mid would on a rotate. But let me summarize it really quick for you. It's actually really simple. A good positioning on defense simply comes down to having the formula down for what makes a good site setup and not over rotating early because way too many people do this. They hear a noise and they all rotate over. Don't do that, get someone to push in and squeeze them in mid, and then get someone to hold B as a backup plan. And then whoever's on the side that is defending it and they're pushing, all you have to do is not peek. Simply don't peek until they are on the site and they are an actual threat. Then when they do, you all peek at the same time and take them out. So many people can win so many rounds if they just don't peek, but too many of you do it. And after you watch this video, you're still going to peek things. Just don't peek it. Even high skill players do it because they have no clue what the fundamentals are. And the next big part to remember is that these are rules and they can be broken. Remember to use them, but they aren't always going to apply. For example, in a 1v1 situation, the best decision isn't always to not peek until they start planting. It's a completely different scenario. And squeezing the rotate in mid, well, that's not exactly going to work if they have a jet lurking in mid too. The best way to think about it is you should make your own rules for every single situation that can happen in Valorant. But for the most part, these will apply. On attack, good positioning comes down to how you get yourself onto the site and also what you're doing when the plant is down. Basically, you want to, as a team, decide where you're going to be pushing, that is good positioning, and actually commit to it. That's good positioning too. But the most important part on attack is when you've got the spike down. When you do have that spike down, you want to be holding cross angles or crossfire angles together, which you can peek off. Get yourself set up in a position where you have cover, but at the same time you can also peek, and there's also a teammate close by you to refrag you if you do end up getting picked off. You'll hear a lot of pro players mentioning about peek off my contact, which essentially means if someone peeks them and starts shooting at them or they see a player, you should peek too. The basic concept of this is simply just refragging or peeking an angle together, which is what I talk about a lot. In a post-plant situation, this is exactly what you have to do. There are so many people who can get themselves onto site, but they can't hold it when they actually do start pushing and retaking it. Again, when the plant is down, don't peek. You know why? Because they haven't started defusing yet. The only time you should peek on a post-plant situation, remember, these are the rules, you should break them, but at the same time, you should use them. The only time is when they are going to be pushing back onto site and they are in the site shooting at your teammate, and you have to peek off their contact, or they're actually defusing it and it is now a problem. Remember to break these rules too, but at the same time, you generally just have to hold an angle, a crossfire with a teammate, have good communication, and peek off it. That's how you have great positioning. Don't peek and hold angles. It really is that simple. And the biggest problem that I see is a lot of people like looking up their insane Killjoy setups that work in Radiant lobbies, or their insane Omen smoke that works in Radiant lobbies. Great, that's going to get you 1 kill in about 2 rounds. Fantastic. It really just isn't worth the time when you haven't actually got down the fundamentals of not peeking when you don't need to. A crazy Omen smoke or Killjoy setup really isn't going to save you and be worth the time compared to just learning the actual basics of Valorant, or the basics of positioning. And just a few tips on how to hold an angle. The main thing you want to look out for is obviously peek at advantage, and generally you want an enemy to swing you first so you can take them out. Your crosshair placement is going to be crucial when you are going to be holding an angle. Make sure you have that down to a T. And what will happen most of the time is an enemy is going to swing out and you should have your crosshair placement right on their head. If you end up dying when you hold an angle, often it is because the angle was too obvious that you were holding, or simply it wasn't actually good enough to hold a crossfire with, you have no cover, or it's an angle that you shouldn't even really be holding. Or again, your crosshair placement wasn't great and they swung out a bit too quickly for you. Either way, you need to get good. That is going to be it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to drop a like on the video if it did help you out, and subscribe for more tips and tricks videos like this. I do stream on Twitch, link down below. And also, click on the video on your screen right now because it's going to be showing you how to play Skye in Valorant. And also, do let me know down below in the comments if there are any videos that you'd like to see on the channel. Maybe some tips or guides that you would like to see and that would help you out. Be sure to comment them down below.